Today we will talk about something completely new, something we have finished and released just a couple of weeks ago, and something that we are really excited about. Today we're going to talk about the plugin we created for the popular React framework called GatsbyJS. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can quickly fetch data from Enonic via headless GraphQL API, and then build a simple website which renders or presents this data in a nice way. There will be no slides today, just hands-on presentation to prove to you that this can be done in a matter of minutes. Don't worry if you don't manage to keep up. First of all, we are recording this presentation, and you can always view the recording afterwards. And second of all, we have written a guide which explains in details everything that I'm going to show you now. All right, let's start. I will share my screen in a minute. Yes. Okay, every modern website starts with a backend or at least some kind of data source. So let's begin with that. I'm sure that most of you have used or at least seen the Enonic CLI. If you haven't, I suggest you install it because it greatly simplifies and speeds up the way you work with the Enonic framework. So I have the latest version installed, which is 1.2.0. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my projects folder. It's empty, no cheating. And I will create a new project. Project 3. Okay. You will get a list of starters, which you can choose to kind of build the skeleton of your new project. And here we will select headless CMS starter. Here you have to enter the name of your project, and I suggest that you leave the default one because the guide that I talked about it uses this name, my project. So if you leave it like this, then it will be easier for you to follow the guide. If not, then you can just select any name you want. Destination folder, my project version doesn't matter. Okay, so now it's gonna build the project, and I already have the sandbox that is using our latest release, XP 7.2.3. But when you try this, if this is the first time you use the CLI, then you will be asked to create a new sandbox and select the version of XP. So just do that, and most likely you will select the latest release, and then it will download the distro, which will take like a minute, but it will only be done once, and so the whole thing takes just a couple of minutes. So I will select my existing sandbox. I don't want the docs. Yeah. So my project is now created in folder called my project. So I will go there. Yes. And before we build and deploy, let's look at the project structure first to understand what is that we're building and deploying, right? Okay, so I will open Visual Code. Yes, so since this project is based on one of the starters, those of you who are familiar with the Enonic development, they will recognize the structure. This is very basic, very simple structure. So the application has a site, and this application is kind of like a sample movie database. So it comes with some content types that we made for you. So there are only 3, and we are only concerned about the top 2, movie and person. So basically, movie is a movie. It's obvious, but a person. This can be either actor or director. Basically, people who contribute to movies. So, like a person, very simple name, some images, biography, birth date. And then a movie, it's a bit more complicated, but still, like a movie name, some kind of like an abstract, release date, director, trailer thing, and it also has cast, so you can cross-reference persons from movies. And we also have like a simple social media X data for which is used both for persons and movies. If you want to add like a link to MDB page or Twitter or who knows what. And the app also comes with some data, which is here. You don't have to look at it now because we will see it in action in a few minutes. So basically, this app will give you a site with some data. And the last but not least, if we look at the si.xml, here we have the API, which is basically our goal, our purpose. We need the API to fetch the data from the storage. So let's see what this app does in action. If we go back to a terminal and we do Enonic project deploy. I'm sure most of you have seen this many times. Okay, so now our application is built and deployed to the sandbox. I'm asked if I want to start the sandbox, and I'm saying yes. XP will start in a few seconds, and also creates the data for our site, as I said. Yeah, so now it seems to be up, and then I can open the new tab, and I can start the browser, and then I will hopefully see XP served on port 8080. So we don't have the Content Studio here, so I will install the default apps. Yes, and now Content Studio is here, and we can look at the site that I talked about. So here is our sample movie database called Headless Movie Database. If we expand the site, so we see the content items which we talked about. We had 3 content types, and here we have 3 folders, each of them containing the content items built based on those content types. So very simple. Actors, right? So some simple data, image, short bio, and directors here as well, and the movies. So yeah, so I have all the data we need, and it's not only the data that we need, right? As I said, we need the API to serve this data down to the client. So if you select the site here, you will get like a short hint or a tooltip. So here are the URLs that you will use as to access the API. If the site is not published yet, it will be on the draft branch. So let's check it out. Here is like basically on GraphQL playground, which you can use to write the queries to fetch the data. Let's just quickly check that it works. Guillotine and okay, get site. Okay, it seems to work. Our endpoint serves the data, so it seems like our backend is ready. It took us how much? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5. Yeah. So now we have the backend, we have the data in storage, we have the endpoint for the GraphQL API. So now we can get to the front-end part of our future site. And here's where we get to GatsbyJS. I'm not sure how many of you have heard or used Gatsby before. This is a very popular open source React framework with a very rich ecosystem of extensions. So the things like plugins and starters. And the best part is that it's super fast because the site pages are generated in real time based on data fetched from virtually any data source. So let's briefly look at what Gatsby says itself. They have a really nice diagram on the main page, which explains how Gatsby works. So you start with a data source, any kind, really. It can be a CMS storage or a database or even physical files in your file system. Then Gatsby fetches data from this data source, usually via dedicated plugins. Then data is processed by GraphQL schemas, and when Gatsby build is run, then Gatsby generates the static web pages using React components, which will be powered by data fetched from the GraphQL storage. And finally, this pre-built static web pages can be hosted on premise or deployed to cloud or anywhere you want. Basically, this is a ready built website which you can do anything you want with. So Gatsby is a relatively new framework, but Enonic, being a pioneer in everything that can simplify life of our users, has decided to build their own plugin. So please welcome Gatsby plugin for Enonic XP. So here are some short instructions and just explanation of the config, which you can read afterwards. So let's see how we can use this plugin to build the front end of our website. And now,
Alan,
yes.
Whenever you have the chance, try to zoom up stuff because it's pretty small.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Is it good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So in the beginning of the talk, I mentioned a guide that we wrote to help those who want to try and build the website using Gatsby and Enonic. And here's the guide. I'm sure most of you have seen our developer portal. Here it is. So the guide is here right on the main page. Here it is. It's quite long because, as I said, it explains everything in details to help you understand how everything works. But for the impatient ones, here is the too long didn't read section. And we have actually completed the first 2 points here. So we launched the XP and we double checked that we have the API up and running. And then the next step is to actually create a new Gatsby project, which will be our site. Gatsby has its own CLI. So if I can now, okay, I will go one level up. Here is my project, which is our backend. So here I will do, I can just copy this. So basically, this command will create a new Gatsby project based on the starter. And our guide, which you are looking at now, it contains both the guide or the docs and the starter itself. So it's very convenient. You have everything in one place. You have both the starter and the guide. So we will use that as the basis for our Gatsby project. Yes. So it looks very familiar to our own CLI. So basically it will set up the project based on the starter. It takes some time because it's fetching all the packages that Gatsby needs, all the plugins.
Actually, there are so many packages that it actually takes quite a while to delete all the files.
Yeah, it does, but that's the modern front-end development nowadays. Everything is in its own package. Yes, so now we have the project set up. It even gives us a hint of what we should do now, and Gatsby develop is basically to start a Gatsby web server in the development mode. So they have the production mode and development mode. So let's go inside the project and Gatsby develop. So what it does now is it fetches the data from our endpoint and builds the static pages based on the data, but we will talk about this. So Gatsby tells us that everything is built and the server is running on port 8000. So if we now again start a new terminal and open the localhost. Yes, ta-da! So now our Gatsby site is up and running, and note that it's running on a different port. So we have our backend on the port 8080, while as the website is on the port 8000. So very simple site, but where's our data that we looked at? Where is our movie database? If you look at the bottom of the page, you will see 2 links here that opened the list of movies and persons which you saw in Content Studio 5 minutes ago. Very simple list. Obviously, these entries here are not hard-coded, right? So how do we get Gatsby to generate these pages? The list pages and of course the individual pages. So if we click at the persons here, we will also see, yeah, basically the details. Where's our Brad Pitt? We want Brad Pitt, yes. Or movies, right? Same. Every movie has a detail page. And here you can see the cross references, right? You can see cast, you can click on UMA, go to UMA page. So let's again look at the code, shall we? All right, so here's our Gatsby project this time. Before we looked at the backend, which was XP project, and here is the pure Gatsby project. So
try zooming.
Yes, of course, like this. Good enough. Yeah. So every Gatsby project has a config file called Gatsby-config. So that's what we will look at. First of all, yeah. So basically here we configure the plugins that will be used by Gatsby. So this is Gatsby's own package.json. Here we can see a bunch of plugins. We don't really care about them now. The only one we care about at the moment is Gatsby plugin for Enonic. So here we can see the entire config, and first of all, we have to specify the endpoint of the API, which data will be fetched from. So this is the same URL which we tested just a few minutes ago. Here. No. Yeah, so here. So this URL which we used in the playground, this is the same as we use here. This is mandatory. You cannot build pages without the data source, so you have to specify this. The next one is optional. This is how often you want to fetch the data. If your data is changing not rapidly, but once in a while, if you want hot reload, then you will specify this, and your new data will automatically be pre-built and deployed. So next is the page config. So this is how you configure the actual pages. At the moment, the plugin supports two types of pages: list and details. So since every page has to be powered by underlying data, we have to specify a GraphQL query to fetch data for this page, if it's a list, or pages, if it's the detail pages. So here we can see the basically where the query is, which we will use for this page. So we have the folder here under source called queries, and here we see basically two files, one to get movies and one to get persons. So we can even open this query. This is very simple. So this is basically to export the entire query string outside of the module. So we can copy this, go to our playground, and just make sure it works. So here we fetch the data that we think we need to generate the pages. So here's the movie, right? Pulp Fiction, blah, 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 images. So it even generates the image URLs, which you will use to access images. Here's the cast to show this cast section with links to the actor pages. Yeah, so basically we have the data in one place, and the same with persons. It's very simple one. So for the persons, we only need like name, bio, and the image, right? Yes. So we have the query. The last thing we need to specify is the page template. So basically, what will be used by Gatsby as the template for the static page that it will generate. So here's the folder called templates, and we have 3 templates there. So we can look at the list first. Very simple template, which basically outputs the list of display names with a link to each detail page. Very simple. So as you can see, it's a simple React component, and since it's very basic, it can easily be used for both movie and person lists. So if we look at our site again, you see that this list is very basic, right? It's just a display name with a link to the detail. And here as well, the same. So we can easily use this template for both pages. Next up is detail pages for movies and persons. Detail pages are a bit more complicated, so we will use 2 different templates for movie details and personal details pages. I'll not bother you with the analysis of the code here, but again, these are just React components, as you can see, where you basically map your data or fields in your query to the elements on the page. So like here, you can see that okay, here I show a display name, and here I have the movie release date in brackets. Yeah, basically. So it's the template is whatever you want it to be. So one important thing to note here is that every detail page needs a key field. So here we can see that we specify key equals name, and the same here. So this is a field which contains a unique value, which can be used to append to the URL of the details page. So if we go back here, and if we click, for instance, on Pulp Fiction, you will see Pulp-Fiction in the URL, right? So name field is basically like a sanitized value of the display name field, but you can use any other field like ID, for instance, as long as it's unique. So if we look at something more complicated, like Samuel L. Jackson, for instance, so here it's, yeah, you can see that his name is sanitized in the URL. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show is hot reload. So just bear with me just a little while, just to prove to you that hot reload is not a fiction. Okay, so we'll go back to Content Studio here, and we will create a new movie. Yeah, or let's start with the cast first. Person. So I'll use myself. Actually prepared some pictures here. Enough. And then I will create another person. I will use Thomas as my fellow speaker today. Like that, yes. Okay, so now we have 2 new persons, and now we will create a new movie. Let's call it Enonic XP. And we need cast. So Ellen as speaker 1, and then Thomas as speaker 2. Of course, the image. So that should be enough. Now save, and now let's go back to our Gatsby site. And yes, and now you see a new movie at the top with the image and the abstract and the cast, right? The terrible image, a bit better image. Okay, so as you can see, hot reload works, and new data comes in. So basically, this is it. So as you can see, it took us maybe half an hour with all the explanations, but I suggest that you go to our developer portal and read the guide, because here we explain everything in details. You will obviously not use the sample movie database in your project, so just read it, try to understand it. It's very simple, even though it's quite long guide. And just ask us if you're not sure, if you're stuck, if you want to add something, because obviously this is just the first version of the plugin. We will continue improving it, so all of your feedback are welcome.
Are there any plans for migration tool from existing static website to Gatsby-based one, if possible? Well, yeah, you have the headless API, so you can just install that. If you want to do a static version of your existing one, you can just use the headless API and then start generating it instead. We should notice that Gatsby has some benefits, but it doesn't solve everything. So what it helps out with is anything you can do statically. So the moment you need something more advanced, like time-based publishing or like search or things like that, then you actually need to have some kind of backend to work together with it. But this is all up to you. So the only thing you need to know is that you can use XP as a data source to build your Gatsby site. And it can also work in collaboration with Gatsby, for instance, with search.
But if you were asking about the tool, like something that will automatically migrate you to Gatsby, then the answer is no. But if you have the static website, then you probably already have the some kind of template, right, and some kind of mapping of data So it's the matter of writing the correct query to fetch the data. So as long as you have the GraphQL query that one gives you the same field names, then you can basically use the same template.